get you while you're fixing your hat because you have bad hair, so you gotta hide it all.
Yeah, you got that right.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Designated Players Podcast. We're out here rolling, recording episode 143. We continue to move closer and closer to that 150 milestone. It's so exciting. Um, it's 2 weeks into the season. We've got a pretty good idea of what St. Louis SC can bring to the league. And we're going to kind of do a mini deep dive into their season. We told you during our not so deep dive series, you guys would get your own episode. So here you go. It's your own St. Louis themed episode. So no more crying, complaining that we skipped over you. I think we're gonna have a lot to talk about, a lot of things to decide. But first, I want to say hello to my co-host Connor and ask, how are you doing, sir?
Thanks for the introduction. Not like I haven't been here for 140 episodes,
Let's be real, you
but
haven't.
it's probably been around there. You can round it.
No, it definitely hasn't. You missed at least 30 episodes in season one.
No, 30 episodes like a whole season.
Bro, it was close. You missed a good amount of season one.
Whatever. Now I'm not doing so well. You
Good.
ruined my day is ruined.
Good. Um yeah, so we're here. We are getting ready to break down St. Louis, but obviously we can't do that until we go and look at our scarves of the week. And I can only guess what you're rocking.
Well, I'm a true fan to the episode here. I brought out my very own St. Louis scarf.
Wow.
The other side here. Got the
Mr.
crest on the end.
Famous.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr.
I don't know if you I got to take a trip for work in I forget when exactly. I want to say October or something. And we were going out to somewhere in Illinois, but the closest airport happened to be in St. Louis. So we took a day at St. Louis and just so happened to be in the area of where the stadium is. Forget exactly where we were going. There's some like food area right near the restaurant. I mean near the stadium. And when we went to go get food, uh, there was like a lot of stuff going on at the stadium. Honestly, I had no idea why at the time, but when I did a little Googling, I found out that it was their first ever game, I think.
Like
It was one of
preseason
the
game?
friendly games.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was against like Freiburg or something like that. One of the German teams, I think. And so they were doing like some pre-game stuff early in the day. So I was like, there's never gonna be a better opportunity than now to like go over and see what's going on, check out the stadium a little bit on the outside. So I went over and saw that they had a bunch of booths set up. So I was listen, I gotta do it. I gotta spend the money to go get a scarf live at the stadium. What better opportunity? So shelled out a lot more money than I normally do for a scarf, but I feel like it was really worthwhile in the end.
Yeah, you gotta, right? When you're in that position, you gotta send it. So um I myself do not have a St. Louis scarf. That and Charlotte are the top of my list right now to add to the wall. But there's a certain German flair to this St. Louis side. I believe I counted 5 players transferred in from German sides. So I went to the wall and I found the one scarf that'll somewhat represent that. We're rocking a Bayern Munich scarf today. Little old school, little boring. It's one sided. It's just the name, and then it's these horizontal stripes. So it's okay, not great,
Kind of
but
boring like their league.
yeah, exactly. It's over by December anyway. So this is probably the first time
Except
in
this
10
year.
years. First time in 10 years it's actually
Yeah.
been half decent. So um this is
Couldn't be
this
our
is
league.
your this is your episode, Mr. Wright. So I'm going to let you take it away. You start with the questions, you start with an anecdote, you can tell a story, you can talk the whole episode. I do not mind. It's all up to you.
I appreciate it. I will be the resident podcast St. Louis fan. Uh, yeah, so obviously we got a little bit of a taste of what they're bringing to the table. Obviously, super small sample size right now, but might as well start off with how St. Louis is lined up in their first two games. So in the opener against Austin at Austin, I'm going just based off what they had in transfer market. I think obviously formations will change throughout the game, but they had them in a 4-3-3 defensive with Berkey in goal, Nelson, Hybert, Parker, Nervinsky in the back line. Then they got Leuven and Indiana Vasilev. Is kind of surprising that Vasilev is playing as like a defensive mid, but you know, if it works, it works. Ostrak at the attacking mid spot, Jared Stroud and Alm on the wings, and then Klaus up top. Then slight changes in game two for the home opener against Charlotte. End up in a 4-4-2 with a double six. Same back line in the defensive mid spot. Valev was moved to the bench for Blom, and Stroud and Ostrak were on the wings, and then Klaus and Gioacchini were up top. So not a ton of changes from the first game, but a few of them there. Probably trying to get a sense, get a feel for what's the right formation, who are the right guys to get in there. But what have you thought about the two formations so far? Would you have a preference on one of the two? Do you think they should try for something completely different?
So the way I saw their second game's formation was more of a 4-2-2 with Stroud and Ostrak playing as kind of wide attacking midfielders, which is a very Red Bull-esque system, something that Bradley Carnell is very familiar with. One of the things I noticed, and again, I didn't spend a lot of time watching them. I was really enjoying MLS 360 these past couple of weeks. One of the things that I really noticed was they're going to press you. They're not going to sit back and be an expansion team that is going to see what this league is about. They're going at you, and they're gonna try and win the ball high. They're gonna put you under pressure, and they're gonna go for it. And that 4-2-2 is very Red Bull-esque, which is exactly the style that they play. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't run away from that anytime soon. Because watching that game against Charlotte, it worked very well. I mean, you saw the first chance that they got was off of the goalkeeper thinking he had way more time than he could, gave it away, and they got a chance off that. They scored an own goal because they were putting pressure, got a free kick, and then put pressure on the ball as it got served into the box. They earned a penalty from winning the ball high in the attacking third. It worked for them. It worked very well. Wherein as Austin, that 4-3-3, they did score early, but they were kind of pinned back after that. So again, different styles of team, different level of team, but I wouldn't be shocked the 4-2-2 or the 4-4-2 defensive, whatever they want to call it, is the way that they go. Because I thought they looked a lot better against Charlotte than they did against Austin.
Computer.
Yeah, so in line with what you were saying and how they were playing really in the Charlotte game and that really like pressing type of tactic, I feel like when you look at the stat, it kind of is in line with what you were saying because just kind of based on what I noticed, it looks like number wise in terms of like shots and shots on target, St. Louis was the better team in both games. And then you look at the possession, and they didn't have anything more than 40% possession in either of the games. So they're really just not playing with the ball. They're fine with the other team having the ball and just really like capitalizing on errors and capitalizing on chances when they come across them. Now, I mean, I don't personally know if that's a sustainable tactic for the entire year. Like you're obviously going to have situations where teams just are going to minimal mistakes, or your team's just not going to be able to capitalize as efficiently as now. And, the tactic might start to come undone. But I mean, think that this is a tactic that they will be able to carry on successfully throughout the rest of the season? Or do you think it's just a little bit of luck at the moment?
Their tactic isn't press high, win the ball, score often. Their tactic is press high, try to win the ball. And if you don't win the ball, just let the other team give it to you, and then we'll score. So no, that is not a sustainable process. That is not a sustainable system. No, but in all seriousness, right? It's definitely sustainable. You've seen Red Bull do it. The issue is when it comes to a playoff game where you can get one and done, if your press is poor, one person is pressing poor, it's, you know, you've got your best player is injured or what have you. If you don't have a plan B, that is where you fail. It's where Red Bull has failed consistently. That is where this team would fail as well. The high press is great. If you've got everybody bought in, they're going to do fine. But the issue will be if the high press doesn't work, what is the next step? And that is, I think, the issue right now. I think that they will be able to develop a better one. You know, you got the likes of Ostrak and Leuven, and players of that quality from the, you know, and Klaus can combine really well to be a possession-based team. I think you've got this concept of maybe let me rephrase that. You don't have a concept, but the quality in this team is higher than that of most expansion teams that come in. You know, you've got good young players who have significant minutes in a top European league that are coming in and raising the level of this expansion team way higher than the likes of, you know, and we use this comparison a lot when we do expansion, you know, FCC or Minnesota, right? When they joined the league, their level was USL quality. They took a lot of the players from the low league and their translation was poor. This St. Louis team has gone out. They have found really, really high quality level players in important positions, right? You got your central midfielders, your striker, and your goalkeeper are all of really high quality, which is very important. You've got good, a very good MLS level center back, a good right back. John Nelson's finally taking that step into a role that we've expected out of him for the last couple of years. When you go forward, you've got a whole bunch of different mixes. Jared Stroud's finally stepping into his own. Giacchini's getting his minutes. It's a team that feels way better built than I think we probably gave them credit for in preseason.
Yeah, I speak a little bit on preseason. I like to compare expansion teams as either an Atlanta or a Minnesota. And I feel like typically the expansion teams kind of fall into one or the other, where you have like good success or you kind of have struggles in the first year. I would say maybe Charlotte was like an outlier in that case, where they were kind of middle ground last season. So in our preseason, definitely go give the episode a listen when we did Western Conference standings predictions. Both of us had St. Louis, I would say more so in a Minnesota category, just based on where we had them finishing in the league. After watching them in the first two games, do you still feel as though they would be classified as a Minnesota type expansion team? Do you think that they would fall more so in the middle ground now, or think that they have more potential to be an Atlanta LAFC type expansion team?
I'm going to be honest with you. I think that St. Louis is about to create a category of their own. And I say that because this is a roster build, and we alluded to it in the preseason. This is a roster build that is unlike anything we've seen before. You've had your teams, the LAFCs, the Atlantas, that have gone out and done young South American attacking talent that you're going to do constant counterattacks, 3v3, really exciting. You've had the Minnesotas, the FCCs, like we just mentioned, where you're going to have USL talent mixed in there that is going to kind of bring your level down. Or you've got the expansion teams that have brought in kind of older European players that, you know, maybe aren't the best level. You think of New York City, right? This is the first team that has gone out and dipped into the youth of the European leagues to build the core of their team. Now, in terms of success, where can they finish? Again, if center backs are deciding to be sleeper agents for them, then they're going to finish top of the table every year because they're just going to be handed goals. However, long term, it's really going to depend on the longevity and the health of players like Klaus, Ostrak, and Leuven. I think you might see something along the lines of, and again, I have to use Red Bull as my focus here, but you might see something along the lines of Kaku or Luquinhas, where they come in and they have a silly good first half of the year. Nobody can figure them out, and then all of a sudden, come midterm break, come mid-season break, you're looking at, okay, we figured out what these guys are going to do. They're going to go ice cold, and then everybody else goes ice cold. If they can avoid that, this team, the sky's the limit for this team. But I realistically, watching them play, it might be a low playoff team, especially with the expansion to 9 teams. It's probably a low playoff team right now, but there's a long season to go. So, but I would say that they're probably in a league of their own in terms of who we can compare them to based off of their roster.
I'd argue that they're somewhat similar to how Charlotte kind of built theirs. I mean, Charlotte had a lot of players that I would say more so of their big name players were, younger-ish towards like the prime of their career European guys like Swiderski came from Greece. He was only 24. Your Juzwiak came from Derby at 23. Sergio Ruiz came from Granada at 26. They also brought in Kalina, who was only 28. So, I mean, to me, the roster build seems similar to Charlotte. And honestly, based on what you were saying, I kind of feel like I could see a season for them that's kind of similar to Charlotte's, just kind of like in and around that playoff hunt at the end of the season, but kind of more so on the border of it. Would you say you agree with that, or you still think St. Louis kind of has their own path here?
I'll say that Juzwiak came in mid-season, right? He wasn't a part of the original build, and they still kept the, when I mentioned that dipping into the youth of the European leagues, I probably should have been more specific. I mean, they're going out and getting these players from relatively successful German league teams is kind of where I wanted to highlight that, right? But whereas Charlotte dipped into Romania or what was the other one? Poland or Greece, and then the last one here was, what is this last one here? Hold on. Portugal, right? Second division Portugal. This feels like they've really gone out and pushed for a set system. Now Bradley Carnell has experience playing in Germany, coaching in, excuse me 1 second while coaching in South Africa, but playing in Germany. He knows the system very well. It is an idea that I think he was probably the driver of. He wanted to get good young high potential Germans in there to keep that style that he's used to.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if you look at the build of the team, like you said, yeah, 100%. I mean, if you look at the makeup of the team, like if you just pulled up, Transfer Market has a good list of where all these guys are coming in from. There are a number, and these are like key players for them too, like guys that have really been the heart of the team so far. They're all coming from, like you said, top level German clubs. And to be fair to what you were saying, I think that is a bit different from Charlotte, where you're grabbing first of all from consistently from one league, which I think definitely has an effect. They're used to a style of play. They kind of have a sense of how to play with one another, even though they weren't necessarily on the same team. And then also just like the level of the Bundesliga is going to be higher than the level of league that Charlotte was bringing players in from. So I definitely would say I would agree with what you were saying. I think that's definitely a good observation. I could definitely see them being kind of a league of their own. It's very different from the way I feel like the league was moving previously, where it was like all young South American talent, like just raiding the Brazilian and Argentinian and Colombian leagues and finding the next young talent to build up and send on. Where St. Louis seems to be grabbing like a mixture of guys that are kind of starting to hit the prime from already like established good leagues in Europe. So it'll be really interesting if they're successful with to see if other new expansion teams start to maybe try and build it similarly to this. But I do want to pivot. Go ahead.
I just wanted to add one more thing. Is the other caveat to the Charlotte versus St. Louis conversation? Charlotte brought in a manager who had no experience in MLS. First of all, also had very minimal experience in general. Bradley Carnell has managed in MLS. He's been an assistant in MLS for a while. He's got the experience to be successful. As you know, in both roles, he understands how it works, and he was great for Red Bull personally. You know, he took a team in 2020 that was expected to miss the playoffs, and he got them going just good enough to get in, sneak in. 14 games, 1.5 points a match, 6 wins, 3 draws, 5 losses. So getting points in 9 of 14 games with the team that Red Bull had in 2020 is fantastic. So I think it's really important to remember that the comparison isn't just the players, but it's also the system and the coach that is leading the players. St. Louis are up 1 on that, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's where I was about to pivot to. I was about to ask you a bit about your experience with Bradley Carnell as your coach temporarily for Red Bull, and whether or not, I mean, do you see similarities in the way that he ran Red Bull is how he's running St. Louis, or does this kind of seem like it's more? I mean, I guess it's a bit different in that he kind of got to build a team from scratch. So do you see that the tactic is different? Do you think he was maybe more so playing a system in Red Bull that suited the players he had available?
Correct. So he didn't get a choice of how he wanted to do things. Red Bull don't give you a choice. It's disgusting. It's ugly football, and you're forced to play it whether you like it or not. I was actually having this conversation this weekend with my head coach, saying we've got the players on this team to play like LAFC. We watch LAFC first, and we watch Red Bull. We've got the players on the team to play like LAFC if we wanted to. Possession, moving the ball, knocking it around, getting in behind. But Red Bull Global say, no, screw that. Just knock it long and try and win the second. It's ugly, it's dirty, it's disgusting. In St. Louis, you can see he's taken aspects of that, the high press when he needs to, the shape in some sense, but you can see it's definitely one that he is still going to tweak with a little bit. He's still going to work with until he can get it perfect. But I do believe that he is in a better spot here where he gets to decide how things happen. He's been given that free reign, and it's something definitely to keep an eye on of how that comes together.
Yeah, I think that's some good insight there. I do want to pivot to something that we were talking about earlier today. Tell me a little bit about your absolutely ridiculous conspiracy theory that St. Louis has paid off the teams that they've played so far to help earn a couple of free goals, and for that reason, you think St. Louis is actually a garbage team.
That is not my take in the slightest. all I'm saying is
that's what it sounded like earlier today.
listen, you're just a hater. So all I was saying, and I mentioned it earlier in the episode, is you cannot rely on this team to keep being handed goals. So I ran down a list of their goals here. In Austin, Kip Keller lost his mark on a corner kick, and Tim Parker headed home. Kip Keller passed the ball back to Jared Stroud for a one-on-one goal, and Kip Keller decided to be a rookie again, and instead of getting himself set and forcing Klaus to the outside, just ran directly by him for the goal. Then you go to the game against Charlotte. You had an own goal, a penalty, and the pass back. the pass back from Milanda that just walked you right in on goal. I like the high press. I like the system that they have going. I think they create a ton of chances. They're creating the own goal. They're creating the penalty, right? They're creating these issues. But you take away the luck aspect of it, right? Crossing the ball, hitting somebody in their hand is not going to happen every time you cross the ball. The serving a ball into the box and having somebody head it into his own net is not going to happen every game. The constant center back passing to your striker for a one-on-one with their goalkeeper is not going to happen every day. So while they're creating these chances, I'm not 100% sold on their attack just yet. Yes, they have 6 goals in 2 games, but the goals aren't like, oh my goodness, I can't, this team is going to win everything because they're moving the ball so brilliantly and nobody's touching it. There's a lot of luck involved. And as they say in the footballing world, it's better to be lucky than good, but you can't be lucky for 34. So I'm not saying they're a bad team. I'm saying that you can't look into them being a supporter shield favorite right now because their results they've been good in terms of getting their points, but their results have not been indicative of great play. It's been indicative of getting some lucky bounces, and lucky bounces, again, that is the mark of a good team is when the bounces go your way. So it's good that they're going their way. They're getting their feet set. They're getting themselves ready to go. I just don't buy into this team is a bunch of world beaters in year one until I see a couple more games where they've worked out, where other teams are not feeding them goals. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, teams are obviously going to make mistakes throughout games. It's going to be extremely rare to come up against teams that are going to make no mistakes in the game. And obviously, I would say the way that St. Louis City plays, if teams don't make mistakes in games, they're probably going to find themselves on the losing side. But I think that that's going to be pretty rare to find. And obviously, I would agree with you that they can't rely on goals like the Keller goal or the Milanda goal, where they just literally get past the ball so that they're one-on-one with the keeper. Right? But I think even if you take those goals away, because again, you can't rely on that every single game, they're still sitting on 4 points in that case, where the only drop points that they have is away at Austin, which is the team that I think both of us had topping the West this year. So I think that their style of play is definitely going to have ups and downs, but I think that it's been working very well so far. And I definitely want to give the St. Louis team credit because I think they've been playing really well. I mean, they're getting their chances and they're absolutely finishing them. I mean, teams get chances every game for the most part. And there's a lot of times where they'll just continuously not take their chances and they come to ruin at the end of the game because the other team took their chances. I feel like St. Louis has been the team taking their chances so far. They're making the most of these mistakes when they happen. And because of that, they're sitting on 6 points out of 2 games and one of the top teams in the West at the moment. Again, obviously really small sample size, but I think that to some degree, they can still rely on creating mistakes from teams throughout the season. It's just a question of how lethal are they going to stay in taking these opportunities when they come to them.
So I'm not sitting here saying that they are a bad team. I want to make that clear. What I'm saying is it's don't get all hyped that they've won 2 games and think that they're going to go off and be, world beaters, because they're not just yet. Because if anybody knows the downfalls of a high press system, it's this guy right here. Okay? So be excited, be hopeful, but don't get overhyped because your dreams will be crushed. That
I don't
makes
think
sense,
anybody
right?
thinks St. Louis is. I don't think anybody thinks Louis is going to be like the next team challenging for supporter shield, but I think they should absolutely have every right to get hyped and get excited about their team. I mean, they're brand new. They're coming in off 2 wins. They've been playing exciting football while they've been doing it. Scoring 3 goals in both games it doesn't get much more exciting than that. Even if they're conceding 3 in 2 games as well, if you're scoring 6 in those 2 games, it's going to be super exciting to watch. It's going to get the fans interested. It's going to keep them engaged. They get to watch their team score loads of goals. I get it. Obviously, you don't want to get too high on this being a sustainable tactic and something that's going to work for 34 games across the whole season. But I feel like they should have every right to get excited for this team and back them. Even though it's unrealistic, let them believe that they have a shot to go top the West and compete for the title
Yeah,
until
like I
they're
said.
proven otherwise.
Yeah, and I think that fans are absolutely bought in and they're very hyped. I mean, you could see what happened during opening day, right? The expansion side had the stands rocking, the crowd was singing, and the chants were flying, right? Sold out 22K stadium. It looked great. People are bought into the team. I don't think anybody's hiding. I don't think anybody's disagreeing. But from a neutral point, it's one of those don't, to me, you know, I don't want to see what MLS does with LAFC where they win one game. It's like LAFC are never losing for the next 10 years because I don't need to see that. And I don't think they're going to get it because it's not an LAFC level uh, demographic, for lack of a better term, right? Like the New York City, the LA, they get the big hype and all this stuff. Whereas St. Louis can
It's
go
St. Louis
can,
versus
can go
Los
and win.
Angeles.
Right, exactly. And which is why I think that they'll actually be better off without all that hype because then they don't have to keep reading about, oh my God, we're the best team ever. They just keep their nose to the ground. They keep going. I'm excited for them. I'm excited to watch what they can do. But I'm not bought in just yet.
Because you're a hater.
Okay.
But anyway, you touched on it just a minute ago. Obviously, second game of the season against Charlotte was St. Louis's home opener. I watched back the highlights this morning, and I gotta say, it sounded loud in there. It sounded like people were super hyped up. I mean, obviously, it's opening game of the franchise. You know, Charlotte obviously had a massive crowd for their home opener. I remember Atlanta had a massive crowd for their home opener at Mercedes Benz. But tell me, what were your thoughts on the atmosphere? I mean, obviously you weren't there in person, but across Apple TV, across any highlights that you saw, what did you think of the atmosphere for St. Louis? It's obviously it's a much smaller stadium as compared to Charlotte, who had like 60, 70K or whatever it was, versus 22K for St. Louis. But what'd you think?
I enjoyed it. Like I said, I always enjoy the first game of an expansion team as you usually do because the hype is still there from the non-diehards. Oh, it's a new cool thing in town. Let's go do it. Let's go live it. Um, my take, and it's been my take for have we had expansion like 3 years in a row now, 4 years in a row now, give or take, maybe missing a year here or there. Every year, the question is still the same. What does it look like by All-Star break? What does it look like by the end of the season? And what does it look like on day one of season 2? Charlotte has done great. Excuse me. Atlanta has done great. They're returning fans, they're returning season tickets, they're making it such that people want to show up. It makes our league look good. It makes supporter culture look good. There's a ton of stuff there that people can really be happy for St. Louis in a place that has hockey, baseball, football, not basketball. No basketball.
I don't think they have
So
football, unless you're referring to soccer.
no. I was thinking, isn't there a St. Oh no, the St. Louis team moved, didn't they?
Yeah,
Moved
they
to
went
LA.
to LA.
Yeah, okay. So that makes it a bit better. My worry was going to be come August when that would start up again. What does this crowd look like? But now that that's out of the way, now I'm a little bit. I feel a little bit better about it. I liked it. I thought it was a really good show for a city that has been waiting for this for a while. I think they put on a great show on the pitch. and I think it'll stay for a good amount of time. But I am curious to see, over the next 4 or 5 home games, what do our numbers look like?
Here's what I would say on the longevity of St. Louis being able to continue to be popular in the city. It seems like the city is very much into the Cardinals. That seems to be their big team. There's support from it seems like a lot of the area around St. Louis, which covers a lot of ground because there's not a lot of teams nearby. I would say maybe Chicago's like the next closest. I'm not exactly sure. But I figure if these fans can be able to sit consistently watch baseball games, they can absolutely sit and watch soccer games. Like they can't hit us with the complaint of oh, the game moves too slow, there's not enough action. You guys are all massive Cardinals fans. You watch baseball. Baseball is extremely slow. It's way slower than this sport. There's way less going on in baseball than there's in this sport. So I feel
Was
like the longevity of their popularity could, be good hands.
I was having that conversation with somebody the other day. The idea that for years we've had the soccer is too slow argument from fans of golf, baseball, and tennis. Like, I don't get it.
Don't group tennis into this.
Oh, we're throwing tennis. I mean, listen, you're here. We're throwing tennis directly under the bus.
No shot.
But no, that's funny. We were just having that conversation the other day, and now it comes up here. I agree with you. I think if you can sit through baseball, you can sit through this. And one of the cool things and our upcoming series of the history of MLS that we are going to do pretty soon, so many stories came through the Reddit threads about how they just went to a game because it was the thing to do on the weekend. My buddies were going, they had an extra ticket. I went with them and I fell in love. Right. And I haven't missed a game since, or I became a season ticket holder. I go to as many games as I can. Those sort of stories are what we're looking for. And especially with only, hockey is still going on, but, they play on the weeknights. You can still fit in MLS on the weekends and do your hockey on the weeknights if you want. Baseball is the same thing. You're going to have baseball games consistently throughout the weeknights. You can, balance that if you'd like. And really, again, for a really good atmosphere, it doesn't need to be a ton. It's 22K. I mean, even Red Bull can pretty much half sell that out. You can make this something really, really special if they do it right. And again, I think they've got the product on the field that will do it right. I think they've got the support around the team right now. It's been pushed out there really well. They, again, I think maybe one really good year would sell this team to that city. I'm hoping.
Yeah, you know what I'm kind of curious of to get your take on, considering that their stadium only fits about 22,000. Do you think that's a concern at all? I mean, I feel like we're somewhat used to expansion teams coming in with massive stadiums, with Atlanta having a huge stadium, and then Charlotte obviously came in last year, massive stadium as well. Do you think them being capped at 22,000 is any cause for concern? Maybe not necessarily now, but maybe in the future.
Nope. Atlanta plays in a football stadium shared with the Falcons. Charlotte plays in a football stadium shared with the Panthers. It's big for a reason. It's big for a different sport. Soccer stadiums outside of Old Trafford, White Hart Lane, the OG European ones. The smaller, the better. The better atmosphere you get out of the smaller stadiums. And here's the deal: if you get 4 or 5 years of 10,000 people on a season ticket wait list consistently, you can expand. You can add seats to the stands. It's easier to add, and well, it's really impossible to remove unless you're using tarps. And I've seen tarps at Red Bull Arena. It kills the environment. It kills the vibe. You've only got your one of your stands is really into the game. The rest are just watching. The smaller it is, the better, especially when you've got the right group to go through it. I went to FCC away, and FCC was a great. I mean, it's Red Bull Arena, but with people, and it's a great atmosphere. It's 25K. The supporter section is loud, proud, and very, very vocal. But everybody else is all really into it too. It's not, again, I only go back to Red Bull. It's what I know best. But you've got the South Ward at Red Bull who are singing their lungs out, and they do a very, very good job. And then everybody else around is there because it's the cheap thing to do on a weekend. They get into, me personally, I have a very favorite place to sit because nobody's around me. I can watch the game all on my own, don't have to worry about it. But there are other people who will take seats like that and then just be on their phone the whole time, or show up wearing a Juventus kit and talking to their friends about the other team's players who have, this one guy that they saw in a video game once. But they're not there for the experience. So, to me, selling the experience of showing up to one of these things is almost equally as important as selling the team or selling the product on the field, because it has to be something that you want to go to even when the team is bad, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point that you brought up. I like the idea that it doesn't necessarily matter how big the stadium is, but the smaller the stadium, you can get a better atmosphere. And I think that's definitely a good point. I mean, if you have 50,000 people potentially interested in going to see the game, but you only can take 22,000, the people more likely than not that are more dedicated to the team and supporting the team are likely going to be part of that 22,000. So then I feel
Correct.
like you'll get the better atmosphere of the people who are more diehard, more ready to chant, more ready to cheer on the team than the people, like you said, who will show up kind of half interested in the game. Maybe somebody had an extra ticket or something and kind of sitting there the whole time, maybe half paying attention. So I think that's a good point. I think that will be really interesting to see if what the dynamic is in St. Louis versus like the last couple of big football, soccer stadiums that have come into the league.
Well, I throw it back one more step. Think about when Red Bull 2 had to play their entire season at Red Bull Arena. They got 4,000 fans in a 25,000 fan stadium. It was brutal. It was like watching a scrimmage. And again, it's a second division team. It's supposed to be less than that. But they moved to Montclair, where again, it's a college stadium. It fits 7,000 people. They get 3,000 going out there, and now it feels like an atmosphere. You have to build it based off of what you can do, and I think they've done well building it smaller. It's not small by any mean, by the way, but smaller where they have the ability to grow it instead of throwing 40,000 seats out there and only being able to fill, 25 of them, and then it goes down to 15 the next season.
Yeah, 100%. That's about all I had on St. Louis. I think we kind of touched upon everything that I want to talk about beforehand. I want to check with you. Anything else that you wanted to touch on?
No, I had a list here about players who have impressed me so far, but we kind of talked about it already in the build up of this episode. So, I think it's a team to watch. I think it's a team that will definitely be better than what we thought they were, barring their health over the next couple of months. They're a team that you don't want to mess with, I don't think. At least right now, they've got the buzz of that new expansion team where everything's, first of all, everything's going great for them right now. They've got the fans behind them. It's a team that has an identity. It has a skill. It's a team that we definitely undervalued. And with the expansion of the playoffs, I think it's at the very least a low playoff team right now.
Oh yeah, they're definitely a playoff threat. I would agree with you there.
Awesome. Well, if that's everything, then let's go ahead and close this thing up here. Connor, I appreciate you joining me and leading this St. Louis themed episode, and we hope that everybody who listened to it enjoyed it. If you are new, make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you know when our next episode goes live. We are starting up our brand new series, which we teased out a little bit before, on the history of MLS. We've reached out to every single team in MLS since the start. Excuse me, since the start of the league. and ask them for their favorite memories of all time. And we are going to go through them one by one, over 200 different anecdotes, and tell that story. So make sure you subscribe to hear those stories and learn about what this league is all about, especially if you're a new St. Louis fan listening to this episode. Make sure you follow us anywhere you, on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. We love interacting with you guys on there. We'll be posting tons of clips from this episode and episodes as we go on. We really want the chance to continue to interact with you, so make sure you follow us there. And that's about it from me, from Connor, and from everybody at the Designated Players Podcast, which is just us. Thanks so much for listening, and we will
Grace.
see you next time. And Grace, yeah, she's back there somewhere. And we will see you next time on the next episode of the Designated Players Podcast. See ya.